Chosen ones, there's a shift happening in the spiritual realm that's manifesting in your physical reality right now. You've crossed a threshold most people never reach. The energy around you is transformed into something that makes others hesitate before they speak to you. Pause before they approach you. Think twice before they test you. They're walking on eggshells in your presence, and they don't even know why. Here's the truth. They'll never admit. You've mastered your villain role, not because you became evil, but because you finally stopped being everyone's emotional doormat. The universe has rewired your energy field. You're no longer the safe place for people to dump their toxicity. You've become the mirror that reflects their manipulation back at them, and now they're terrified to cross you. What you're about to discover is why this fear you're inspiring isn't a curse. It's your divine protection activating. You're like a flame that once warmed everyone who came near, but now you burn anyone who tries to take advantage of your heat. That shift, that's your power fully awakened. You spent years being the person everyone could lean on, the shoulder, the listener, the one who showed up without asking what you'd get in return. You poured yourself into connections that never filled you back up. They made you feel like your love was too much, too intense, too demanding, even though you never demanded anything, you just existed in your fullness. And that alone made them uncomfortable. But you don't come in portions. You're either in or you're gone. And when you finally understood that something inside you went cold and calculating, that coldness isn't numbness, it's clarity frozen into something unbreakable. You looked at every relationship and saw the truth with surgical precision. Most of them were tourists in your life. They came for the view and left when the weather changed. They never intended to stay through your storms. You watched them disappear, and instead of chasing, you let them go. Not sadly, not angrily, just finally, you closed the door, locked it, and threw away the key. That's when you became dangerous. People sense when someone stops caring about being liked. It disrupts their entire strategy. They're used to leveraging your need for connection. They could always manipulate you with a little attention, a breadcrumb of affection, just enough to keep you hoping. But you don't hope anymore. You know, you see exactly what people are offering before they finish offering it. You can smell insincerity from 3 conversations away. You've developed an instinct for emotional games that's so sharp, people can't even set up the board before you've already walked away from the table. This makes you unpredictable to them, uncontrollable. And in their eyes, that makes you the villain. Here's what actually happened. You learned to protect your peace with the same intensity you used to give it away. You became selectively available instead of universally accessible. You started requiring people to earn what they used to get for free. Suddenly your time had value. Your energy had a price. Not money, but something far more expensive. Authenticity, consistency, reciprocity, respect. Most people looked at those requirements and walked away. They called your boundaries walls and your standards impossible. They made you out to be the problem because it was easier than admitting they never planned to treat you right in the first place. You became the villain in their narrative because villains in stories are the ones who refuse to play by the hero's rules. And in their story, the rules were simple. You give, they take. Everyone pretends it's balanced. You were supposed to keep sacrificing yourself on the altar of their convenience. But you got up off that altar, brushed yourself off, and said something they never expected. No, just that, no more. No explanations, no apologies, no negotiations, just a clean, sharp, final no. That word coming from someone who used to say yes to everything hits like a slap. They're not used to you having edges. They're used to you being soft, malleable, endlessly forgiving. Now you've become something with teeth, and they don't know how to handle it. The fear you see in their eyes isn't about you being cruel. It's about them realizing you're no longer afraid of being alone. That was always their leverage. But you walked away enough times to realize what you lose when you leave people who don't value you. Nothing. You lose nothing. Actually, you gain space. You gain peace. You gain the energy you were wasting trying to make half-hearted people carefully. Once you internalize that truth, you became untouchable. This is where your power lives now, in your absolute willingness to stand alone rather than stand diminished. You're not isolating yourself out of bitterness or spite. You're just done pretending that crumbs are a meal. You've tasted what it feels like to be truly valued by the rare few who are capable of it. And you've decided that's the only table you're sitting at from now on. Everyone else can eat without you. This decision, this standard, this refusal to settle. It radiates from you like a frequency. People pick up on it instantly. They sense that you're not auditioning for their approval anymore. You're not performing or proving or trying to convince them of your worth. You simply are. And if they don't see it, that's not your problem to solve. That indifference to their validation is what scares them most. Torment tumble out. They're scared because they know you see through them now. Every manipulation tactic they've ever used, every guilt trip, every time they played victim to avoid accountability, every moment they pretended not to understand what you needed so they wouldn't have to give it. You remember all of it, and you're not pretending anymore either. You're not smoothing things over or giving them the benefit of the doubt for the 17th time. You're just watching them with this calm, knowing look that says, I see exactly who you are and I'm not interested. That look is more devastating than any argument or confrontation. It's dismissal without drama. It's being written out of your story without a goodbye scene. They don't know how to fight that. They don't know how to guilt trip their way back into your good graces when you're not feeling guilty about prioritizing yourself. Some of them will try to come back. They always do. They'll notice the space where they used to occupy your thoughts, and their ego won't be able to handle it. They'll reach out with casual messages, testing the waters, seeing if you've softened. They're hoping you've forgotten how they treated you. They're counting on you being the same person who used to accept apologies that weren't really apologies and second chances that turned into 15th chances. But you're not that person anymore. You've evolved past the version of yourself that needed their approval. When they come back, they'll find someone who doesn't need anything from them. Not closure, not explanations, not even acknowledgement. You've already moved on internally, which means their return is just noise. White noise, irrelevant static. If this message hits your spirit, hype this video so more chosen ones like you can find it. Watch what happens when you respond with polite disinterest instead of the emotional investment they're used to. They'll escalate. They'll try harder. They might even accuse you of being cold or acting superior. This is projection. They're trying to make you feel guilty for having standards because your standards highlight their lack of effort. They want you to defend your boundaries so they can poke holes in your defense. But you don't defend anymore. You just maintain, you keep your peace, you keep your distance, and you keep moving forward. This consistency is what breaks them. They realize they've lost access to someone they took for granted, and there's no manipulation tactic left that works on you. That's when the fear becomes permanent. They understand now. You can't be controlled, convinced, or brought back down to who you used to be. Your journey through fire refined you into something most people aren't ready for. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every rejection showed you who lacks the capacity to hold you. Every disappointment became a lesson in self-sufficiency. You didn't just survive those experiences. You alchemized them into wisdom, boundaries, and an unshakable sense of self-worth. People who haven't done that work look at you and see someone intimidating, someone they can't compete with, because you're not even competing. You're operating on a completely different frequency. Now, you've transcended the need for external validation and stepped into a version of yourself that's self-contained, self-assured, and self-protecting. That's the energy people feel radiating from you. It's not arrogance, it's sovereignty. This sovereignty is what makes you seem like the villain to people who wanted to keep you small. Villains in their minds are anyone who refuses to shrink. Anyone who takes up space unapologetically. Anyone who says no without guilt. Anyone who walks away without looking back. By that definition, yes, you're the villain. And here's the beautiful truth. That's the best role you've ever played, because being the villain in someone else's story means you're the hero in your own. You're prioritizing yourself. You're protecting your energy. You're refusing to be supporting character in a narrative where you deserve to be the protagonist. That's not villain. That's self-respect. But to people who benefited from your lack of boundaries, it feels like betrayal. Let them feel betrayed. Their discomfort is not your responsibility to manage anymore. You've mastered something that most people never learn, the art of detachment without needing them. You can love without losing yourself. You can invest in relationships without making them your entire identity. This balance, this ability to be both open-hearted and self-contained is rare. Most people swing between extremes. They're either completely dependent on others for their sense of worth, or they shut down entirely and refuse to let anyone in. You found the middle path. You're emotionally available to people who've earned it and completely unavailable to people who haven't. This selectivity is what makes you powerful. You're not giving your energy away indiscriminately anymore. You're investing it strategically, intentionally in connections that actually nourish you. People who are used to having unlimited access to you are now facing withdrawal. They miss your attention, your support, your energy, but they don't miss it enough to actually change their behavior. They just miss having easy access to someone who made their life better without requiring them to do the same in return. When they realize you're not coming back, that's when the smear campaign might start. They'll tell mutual friends you've changed. They'll paint themselves as victims of your newfound coldness. They'll rewrite history to make it seem like they were always good to you and you just became ungrateful. Let them talk. Anyone who truly knows you will see through it. And anyone who believes their version without asking for yours wasn't really in your corner anyway. This is the phase where you discover who your real tribe is. The people who stayed when you stopped people-pleasing. The ones who respected your boundaries instead of testing them. The ones who celebrated your growth instead of resenting it. These are your people. They're rare, but they're real. They don't need you to dim your light to feel comfortable. They're not intimidated by your strength because they're secure in their own. They match your energy because they've done their own work. These connections feel different, easier, reciprocal. You're not constantly giving and never receiving. You're not walking on eggshells or managing someone else's emotions. You're just existing in your truth, and they're doing the same. And somehow it all flows naturally. That's what you've been making space for by cutting off everything that wasn't serving you. The fear people feel when they see you now isn't really about you at all. It's about what you represent. Consequences. For years, they could treat you however they wanted without real repercussions. You'd be hurt, sure, but you'd always come back. You'd always forgive. You'd always give another chance. They operated under the assumption that your love was infinite and unconditional, which meant they never had to earn it or maintain it. But you introduced something new into the equation: accountability. You showed them that actions have consequences, and the consequence of treating you poorly is losing you permanently. That's terrifying to people who never thought they'd actually lose you. They took you for granted so thoroughly that your absence feels impossible. But here it is. Here you are, thriving without them. That's the fear. You see the realization that they were replaceable to you the moment they made you feel replaceable to them. You've become comfortable with the idea that not everyone deserves access to you. This comfort is your superpower now. You don't feel guilty about it. You don't second-guess it yourself. You don't wonder if you're being too harsh or too cold or too much. You know your worth. And you know that protecting it isn't selfishness, it's survival. The people who call you selfish are the ones who benefited from your selflessness. The people who call you cold are the ones who took your warmth for granted. The people who call you difficult are the ones who wanted you to be easy to use. Their opinions are data points, showing you exactly who wasn't worthy of the version of you they're complaining about losing. Thank them for revealing themselves and keep moving. Something interesting happens when you stop explaining yourself. People who are used to you over-justifying your boundaries suddenly have nothing to argue against. They're waiting for the long explanation about why you can't do something. why you need space, why you're saying no. They've prepared counter-arguments to all your usual reasons, but you don't give reasons anymore. You just state your boundary and let it stand. I'm not available for that. That doesn't work for me. I'm not interested, full stop. No justification, no apology, no opening for negotiation. This directness short-circuits their manipulation tactics. They don't know what to do with someone who isn't seeking their approval or trying to make them understand. You've stopped performing emotional labor for people who won't appreciate it anyway. That's growth. That's power. Your energy has changed because your priorities have changed. You used to prioritize being liked, being needed, being the person everyone could count on. Now you prioritize peace, authenticity, and reciprocity. You'd rather have a small circle of real ones than a large network of fake connections. You'd rather be alone than in company that drains you. You'd rather be misunderstood by many than compromise yourself for anyone. These priorities make you selective, discerning, and ultimately intimidating to people who can't meet your standards. They should be intimidated. Your standards aren't arbitrary. They're their sort of painful lessons about what you will and won't tolerate. Anyone intimidated by them is probably someone who would have violated them. Tom Pendle, the version of you that people are scared to cross isn't meaner or harsher than before. You're just bounded. You've learned to say no without guilt. You've learned to walk away without looking back. You've learned to cut people off without giving them closure if they don't deserve it. You've learned that you don't owe anyone access to you, explanations for your choices, or second chances after they've shown you who they are. These aren't villain behaviors. These are sovereign behaviors. This is what self-respect looks like when it's not performing for anyone's comfort. People mistake your boundary setting for aggression because they're used to you having no boundaries. Your baseline has shifted and they're struggling to adjust. Let them struggle. You're not responsible for making your growth comfortable for people who benefited from your stagnation. You're not responsible for staying small so others feel big. You're not responsible for dimming your light so others don't feel blinded by their own darkness. You've worked too hard to get here to apologize for arriving. You've been through too much to go backward for anyone's comfort. You've earned every ounce of the peace you're protecting. If that makes you the villain in someone's story, wear that badge with pride. It means you're the hero in your own, and that's the only story that matters. The transformation you've undergone isn't about becoming cold-hearted. It's about becoming clear-minded. You see people for who they are, not who you hope they'll become. You accept their limitations without trying to fix them. You recognize red flags immediately instead of giving people the benefit of the doubt until they've hurt you multiple times. This clarity feels like coldness to people who are used to you giving them endless chances. But it's not cold. It's just no longer warm in a way that burns you up from the inside. You've learned to love yourself more than you love the idea of being loved by people who don't know how to love properly. That's maturity. That's wisdom. That's power. Chosen one, you haven't become the villain. You've become untouchable. There's a difference. Villains hurt people intentionally. You're just refusing to be hurt anymore. Villains take from others. You're just refusing to give to people who won't reciprocate. Villains manipulate and control. You're just refusing to be manipulated or controlled. What they call villain is actually self-preservation. What they call coldness is actually clarity. What they call difficulty is actually standards. You've simply stopped accepting less than you deserve. And to people who wanted to give you less, that feels like an attack. It's not. It's just you finally choosing yourself after choosing everyone else for so long. Now let me put you onto something real. Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation, and attacks while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology. The same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition, and scarcity. Re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. The collective upgrade is underway. Start your destiny engine for $1 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. The fear you inspire now is the fear of consequences. People are scared to cross you because they know you mean what you say. If you say you're done, you're done. If you say you need space, you take it. If you say something is unacceptable, you don't accept it. Your words and actions align now in a way they didn't before. You're not making empty threats or drawing lines in the sand. That you're about who you are and what you will tolerate. And then you're backing those statements up with action. This consistency is powerful. It tells people that you're serious, that you're not bluffing, that testing your boundaries will result in losing access to you. That fear is healthy. It keeps people who don't have good intentions at a safe distance. You've learned that some people will only respect you once they fear losing you. That's sad but true. There are people in your past who didn't value you until you withdrew your presence. Then suddenly you were amazing. Then suddenly they saw your worth. Then suddenly they wanted to make things right. But by then you'd already moved on. You'd already seen that they only valued you in your absence, which meant they never truly valued you at all. Real value isn't realized in hindsight. Real value is recognized and honored in real time. Anyone who needed to lose you to appreciate you didn't appreciate you. They appreciated what you did for them. There's a difference. You know that difference now. That's why you're not going back. The people who are scared to cross you now are the ones who know they can't afford to lose you again. Maybe they lost you once and got a glimpse of how much better you made their life. Maybe they watched you walk away from someone else and realized they could be next. Maybe they just sense that you're different now, that you're not the person who used to accept mistreatment with a smile. Whatever the reason, they're treading carefully. They're being respectful. They're actually showing up the way you always deserved. For some of them, this fear-based respect might evolve into genuine appreciation. For others, it'll always be performative. Your job is to discern which is which. Your job is to only invest in people whose respect comes from genuine recognition of your worth, not from fear of losing their access to you. You've entered a new chapter where you're no longer trying to prove yourself to anyone. You're not auditioning for roles in other people's lives. You're not convincing anyone that you're worth their time and energy. You're just existing in your fullness. And if people recognize your value, great. If they don't, that's information. You take that information and adjust your level of investment accordingly. This approach feels ruthless to people who are used to you chasing them, but it's actually just efficient. You're no longer wasting energy on people who don't see you. You're directing that energy toward yourself and toward the rare individuals who actually match your frequency. This strategy has transformed your life. You have more peace, more energy, more joy, less drama, less disappointment, less emotional exhaustion. The villain role you've supposedly taken on is really just the role of someone who knows their worth and refuses to negotiate it. You're not hurting anyone. You're just not helping people who wouldn't help you. You're not being cruel. You're just not being overly kind to people who took your kindness for weakness. You're not shutting everyone out. You're just being selective about who gets in. These are reasonable, healthy behaviors that anyone with strong self-esteem would exhibit. But because you used to have weak boundaries and low standards, your current healthy boundaries and high standards look extreme to people who knew the old you. Let them adjust or let them leave. Either way, you're good. The mastery you've achieved is the mastery of self. You've mastered the art of not needing anyone who doesn't need you back. You've mastered the art of walking away without closure when staying would cost you peace. You've mastered the art of loving people without losing yourself in them. You've mastered the art of being alone without being lonely. You've mastered the art of protecting your energy without apology. These are advanced level life skills that most people never learn. You learned them through pain, through betrayal, through being forced to choose between your peace and other people's comfort. You chose your peace every time, and it changed you. It hardened you in some ways, yes, but not in a bad way, in a protective way. Like how a seed needs a hard shell to protect the life growing inside it. You've developed your shell, what's inside your heart, your love, your light that's still soft, still pure, still capable of deep connection. You've just become very, very selective about who gets to access it. This is your power now. This is why people are scared to cross you. Not because you're mean or vengeful or waiting to punish anyone who steps out of line, but because you've become someone who values themselves enough to remove anyone who doesn't value them. That's terrifying to people who want to have their cake and eat it too. People who want to treat you however they feel like and still maintain access to you. People who want to give the bare minimum and receive your maximum. Those people are right to be scared. They should be, because the era of you accepting crumbs is over. You've tasted what it feels like to feast on your own self-respect. And you're never going hungry again just to make someone else comfortable. You've become the villain in stories told by people who wanted you to stay the victim. Think about that. In their version of events, you're too much, too difficult, too demanding. In your version, you simply stopped accepting less than you deserve. Both stories can't be true. Either you're being unreasonable or they're mad that you're no longer allowing them to use you. The truth is obvious to anyone paying attention. Your growth threatens their narrative. Your boundaries disrupt their comfort. Your absence reveals what they took for granted. They're not scared of who you've become. They're scared of what your transformation says about who they always were. Users, takers, people who only valued you for what you could do for them, not for who you are. Chosen one. You've always been powerful. You've always been magnetic. You've always been someone special. The difference now is that you know it. You're no longer seeking confirmation from external sources. You're no longer waiting for someone to see your value and validate it. You've validated yourself. You've looked in the mirror past all the ways people tried to make you feel small, and you've seen the truth. You are extraordinary. You are rare. You are deserving of everything you've ever wanted. And anyone who can't see that, anyone who made you feel like you were asking for too much when you were really just asking for the bare minimum, they don't belong in your life. Period. No exceptions. No excuses. This knowing, this unshakable certainty in your own worth is what radiates from you now. It's what people feel when they're in your presence. You're no longer seeking, no longer proving, no longer performing. You're just being, and your energy says, I am enough. I know I am enough. I don't need you to confirm it. Take it or leave it. That confidence, that self-assurance, that complete lack of desperation, it's magnetic to the right people and repellent to the wrong ones. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, filtering your life so that only those who are worthy of you remain. The fear people feel isn't something you're doing to them. It's something they're doing to themselves. They're projecting their own guilt onto you. They know on some level that they didn't treat you right. They know they took advantage of your kindness. They know they gave you less than you deserved. And now they're watching you thrive without them. Watching you set boundaries they can't cross. Watching you build a life that doesn't include them unless they step up. That's threatening. That's uncomfortable. That makes them face shortcomings. So they label you the villain instead of accepting that they were the one playing that role all along. Let them believe what they need to believe. You know the truth. That's all that matters. You've stopped explaining yourself, stopped defending your boundaries, stopped trying to make people understand why you require what you require. You've entered a phase of simply being and allowing others to accept or reject what you're offering. This is the ultimate form of respect for yourself and paradoxically for others. You're not trying to change anyone. You're not trying to convince anyone. You're just clearly stating who you are and what you need, and then observing who can meet you there. The people who can't, they remove themselves. The people who can, they step up. It's a beautiful filtering system that happens automatically when you stop compromising yourself for others' comfort. Your journey has led you here to this place of sovereign power where you're no longer a participant in games you never wanted to play. You've stepped off the board entirely. You've created your own game with your own rules, and those rules are simple. Respect me or lose me, show up or ship out. Match my energy or move along. These aren't harsh rules. They're fair rules. They're the rules everyone should live by, but most are too afraid to enforce. You've overcome that fear. You've realized that being alone is not the worst thing that can happen to you. Being in company that diminishes you is worse. Being connected to people who drain you is worse. Having a full circle of half-hearted people is worse. So you've chosen quality over quantity, depth over breadth, real over fake. And in doing so, you've become someone people are genuinely scared to cross. That fear is your freedom. It keeps the wrong people away. It makes the right people show up correctly. It protects your peace without you having to constantly defend it. You've built a life where your boundaries enforce themselves because everyone knows you mean what you say. They know you'll walk away. They know you're not a right. And they should know that because it's true. You've learned the ultimate lesson that you are the prize, not in an arrogant way, but in a factual way. You're the prize because you've done the work on yourself that most people avoid. You've healed wounds that others let fester. You've confronted shadows that others run from. You've transformed pain into wisdom, rejection into discernment, betrayal into boundaries. That's not common. That's rare. And rare things are valuable. Trontabangic. So when people look at you now and see someone they're scared to cross, they're seeing the truth. They're seeing someone who has conquered themselves and emerged as their own protector, their own validator, their own source of love and worth. They're seeing someone who doesn't need saving because they've saved themselves. They're seeing someone who doesn't need completing because they're already whole. They're seeing someone who doesn't need them unless they're adding value. And that's a terrifying reality for people who are used to being needed despite adding nothing. Your evolution has exposed them. Your growth has revealed their stagnation. Your boundaries have highlighted their boundary violations. No wonder they're scared. You're a walking mirror showing them everything they're not and everything they could be if they did the work. Most won't do the work. They'll just stay scared and keep their distance. And that's perfect. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. Chosen one, you've mastered your villain role, not by becoming villainous, but by refusing to play the victim anymore. You've claimed your power. You've protected your peace. You've prioritized yourself. And in a world that conditions people, especially those with big hearts, to be endlessly selfless, your self-prioritization looks like rebellion. It looks like coldness. It looks like villain. But it's not. It's just health. It's just wholeness. It's just someone who finally learned that you can't pour from an empty cup. So, you've stopped pouring for people who aren't interested in filling you back up. You've stopped giving to people who only take. You've stopped showing up for people who disappear when you need them. You've stopped being loyal to people who were never loyal to you. That's not villain. That's wisdom. That's self-respect. That's power. And now, standing in this power, you're exactly where you're meant to be. You're not for everyone. You never were. You're for the few who can match your energy, meet your standards, and appreciate your depth. Everyone else was always meant to fall away. Their fear of crossing you is just the mechanism by which they remove themselves from your path. Let them go. Let them talk. Let them paint you as the villain. You'll be too busy living in the peace you've created, surrounded by people who actually deserve you, building a life that reflects your worth. That's not a villain origin story. That's a hero's journey. And you, chosen one, are the hero who finally stopped waiting for someone else to save them and became their own salvation. Now watch how everything changes.